Good morning, evening, or night, everybody. I'm Jax, and in this video, I'll be breaking down and analyzing the Plaza / Hub / Square from Splatoon 3's Splatfest Premiere Demo. I'll be taking a look at the layout, the shops, the graffiti, the characters, the animation, etc. to see every single little thing I can find. So let's super jump into Splatsville and get started. Okay, I lied. Before we get started, actually, I already did analyze a lot of Splatsville itself in my exhaustive analysis of the Splatoon 3 Direct video, so I'm going to be referencing that video quite a bit during this one, especially starting with the map that I made. As we can see, compared to the map the game actually shows you during the Splatfest premiere, I was pretty dang close. The back area where Tableturf Battle is was not really super easily identifiable in the Direct, but now that we see it, it makes perfect sense. The hub area in this game is kind of a rough rectangle that has a loop around it that's sort of on the entirety of the outside of the match, which in the first half of the Splatfest, the deep cut members on their floats actually float around in that loop. There is also this area where you can ascend up to get a better view, but nothing really super important is up there. I was correct in my assumption that this hub would have more verticality though. The aforementioned area, as well as Nacht Couture being above Emotes, gives the plaza a good sense of height, but it's a bummer we cannot climb higher up the stairs around Nacht Couture though. Now back to the map, we essentially have this long pathway that connects the main street, the Tableturf Battle / back park area, the intersection, and the main battle tower. I really enjoy this layout. I've always wanted more to explore. In Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2's plazas always felt a bit small and sort of not really super interesting. Splatoon 3's is bigger and it feels more lively, it's got a lot more personality, as each small little area is packed full of details and fun stuff to see. The map the game shows is this patched together series of screenshots and icons denoting where stuff is, and also uses these duct tape arrows, which keeps up with Splatoon 3's theming. It's chaotic for sure, so it definitely fits. Now we'll start in the main intersection, where we can see our little buddy just chilling right over here. He just sits there, and as far as I can tell, when you reload the plaza, he moves around to certain preset spots, like on top of a large sign, or in front of Crust Station like we saw in the Direct. In my footage, I think I spot him once or twice when I walk around after I reload back into the plaza. Now, the manhole for story mode access is locked off in the demo, of course, and these large shrine gates behind it are essentially just all for looks, as behind them is just an out-of-bounds area, but this is where you access hero mode. The graffiti and stickers are covering a ton of surface area in the entirety of this plaza, and that only becomes more apparent as time goes on. Obviously, during the demo, before the Splatfest started, just the booth where you can pick your team was available, with these tape marks denoting where the amiibo box is placed right next to it. The jelly running the booth has some glow sticks, which are seen in the night sections, a clipboard, a megaphone, and other bits and bobs that any event staff would need to run something like a Splatfest. I actually checked and flipped through a lot of the rules information here to see if there was anything interesting, but I'll be covering all demo gameplay related stuff in a future video, so be on the lookout for that. I did notice that most of these apartments have clothes hanging outside their balconies, as well as a large glass building behind the shrine gate itself. The jellies are also back and still bouncy, but they seem to be a bit more movable than before by running into them. The long jellies are also back in the plaza too, which is cool for some diversity in their shape and size. Squidbagging, on the other hand, also now notably looks less impactful and more like an amorphous blob. Kind of a subtle change, but probably intended by the developers to curb the usage of this taunt. I doubt it'll really cut down on it at all, and I actually do have a video on why people squidbag in general, if that's a question that you have. I'll link it down in the description below. I did enjoy the pre-Splatfest portion, having all this setup equipment and sort of in-progress building of all these floats. It made the atmosphere feel even more like it was in real time, especially as all of us were kind of clamoring to just get into the game and play, even if it was just the Splatfest demo. Now, the bike that we saw in the Direct is right here, and it still has this squid-shaped keychain as well as Inkling script on its license plate and around a bunch of this area of the map. Now this area is just a dead end, but it does have the phone storefront that I also pointed out in the Direct, which sells the old Inkling squid-shaped phones from the first 2 games. The streets behind this wall show a bus, a truck, and some cars, which gives this area a real downtown hustle and bustle feel. There is randomly a tree growing out of a window super up high here for some reason as well. I guess some of the residents of these apartments are really good with plants. As we round this corner, we can see all the low poly renders of stuff inside Hotlantis, as well as some more script on the door itself. I do like how all the shops in the Splatoon series have low poly renders of stuff right before you get into the shop that sort of make it look like the shop before you actually get inside of it. But nobody really ever looks at them that much, and for good reason. They are pixelated and only meant to cover up the sort of blank space without taking up too much space of the game's memory while the plaza loads. Hotlantis is the same as what I covered in the Direct, but like all the other shops we will see, you need to be level 4 to access it, other than Emotes, of course, which you only need to be level 2. That really doesn't have an impact on the demo, but for the main game, that keeps the trend of all the other games. So if you want to start buying stuff for your catalog, you've got to be level 4 first. And also, the loading icons now are seemingly in 3D and sometimes resemble a squid. The autosave icon, which appears on the bottom left of the screen a few times when I played, is actually an animated swoosh of the 3 from the game's logo, which I thought was kind of a really nice touch. Now, this blue sign and flag right outside Hotlantis where the guy usually stands is here in the demo, but minus the Goldfish sort of staff member that works there. Shoutouts to a bunch of you on my Direct video for pointing out that these shopkeepers are probably Goldfish. I can't believe I didn't make that connection. They look just like them. Now, the crane and the float have some nice textures, but the most important thing here is the map in the back of Sheldon's Ammo Knights. It is low poly, of course, but due to a rip from the datamine, it actually is a world map after the flooding due to prior events in Splatoon's lore, marking the first time we've ever seen a map of the world in the games. This is huge because, first off, it reaffirms the lore that humans flooded the Earth. It also shows how several continents, at least in Splatoon's world, are affected due to flooding. It's just a really cool detail and a really nice confirmation, and also it just looks sick. It kind of sucks that it's low resolution and barely visible in the game, and that we've only been able to see it in high quality due to data mining being able to rip the file itself, but thank goodness for everyone who was involved in getting this to the masses. Also, the animations of various Inklings and Octolinks in this plaza are just incredible. They really put a lot of time and effort into making the hub feel so much more lively this time around. Throughout the rest of the video, you'll see tons of Inklings and Octolings on their phones, dancing, sitting, squatting, playing rock, paper, scissors, gossiping, and more. It's such a cool way to sort of beef up the atmosphere and the style of the game. Now, that's not to say that Splatoon 1 and 2 didn't have animations like this, but the sheer quantity, complexity, and length of some of them in Splatoon 3's demo is astounding. It really feels like a chaotic city with just a bunch of people walking around going about their lives and also doing a bunch of stuff that humans would do too. We can also see this Inkling look at their sea cucumber phone, which seemingly has a weather app, messaging, these sort of icons that kind of resemble the TikTok and Twitter icons, which is kind of a nice touch. We also get to see this squatting trio over here that show off the jiggle physics of this tentacle on the middle one as they discuss some very important Among Us. This Octoling boy waves himself off. This girl looks around at her phone while this dude taps his foot in anticipation of the Splatfest while another crouches on the stairs just behind him. Again, I love all the character and the personality these animations give the various Inklings and Octolings in the plaza. It didn't really need to be done at all. It doesn't add anything gameplay-wise, but it just makes the game feel so much more alive. Now, changing gears, we finally get a look at this statue that I couldn't identify in the Direct. I thought it was a duck or a chicken, and I was close. It's a rooster. So, knowing that it's a rooster, we have a few things to talk about. The 3 statues in the game are a pig, a snake, and a rooster. And for those of you who don't know, those 3 animals represent the 3 poisons in Buddhism. The rooster is greed, which makes sense, as this statue is holding and sort of hoarding these large, sort of royal-looking eggs. The snake represents ill will, which makes sense for Splatoon's placement, as the snake is on top of the weapon shop and has this RPG head-looking tail. And the pig represents delusion, which doesn't really have any tie, at least to this Splatoon Plaza as far as I could tell, so make up your own. These 3 statues are definitely representations of the 3 poisons of Buddhism, which, if you also did not know, is the 2nd most popular religion in Japan with a large and vast cultural influence, so it's not really a shock that something like this made it into the game. The other statues from Splatoon and Splatoon 2 also represent mythological figures in Japanese culture and religion, like the Kitsune and the Tanuki from Splatoon 1. We can then see the entryway to the underground metro with these 2 advertisements for something dealing with an empty or upset stomach and a glass of milk. Now, this is kind of weird because there are no mammals in Splatoon's world. Obviously, Splatoon 3 has Return of the Mammalians as its story, but how can there be milk at all if there are no mammals in the world? I don't know. It could have just been an oversight, but whatever. The subway signs themselves have some Inkling script on them, as well as the sign on the building next door, too. Now, as I walked to the studio, I saw this post from Splatoon lore god Rassicus, and I decided to test out the fresh vote system for Splatoon 3, and it works the same as the previous games, with an option to report posts as well. Now, the studio where Deep Cut films is actually pretty large. It's bigger than both Splatoon and Splatoon 2 studios that the idols used. And we can actually see that the idols use cue cards, which this jelly is holding. One of them actually sits in a director's chair, and another one has a boom mic, so at least 3 jellies help with the production of the Anarchy Splatcast. Now, like Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2, if you stare at the idols long enough, they will acknowledge and wave at you, which is pretty cool. And the animations for these 3 just talking are all really nice, and it's cool that they kept this little feature in. The set itself has traditional Japanese architectural elements and lanterns that sort of give it a unique vibe that sort of tie into the hero mode as well as the plaza's general vibe. I also spotted this cafe menu over here near the stairs. Now sadly, you can't access this, but it seems like the building above the studio is a cafe that serves like coffee, cake, and I think this is a smoothie. As we move on a little bit, we once again see some Inklings playing rock, paper, scissors, which is appropriate since this was the rock, paper, scissors Splatfest. Now, the animation itself, it does seem that they always tie on paper and rock, and then the third go around is one of them winning with rock over scissors, and then it just restarts the animation. I watched it a few times, and that's basically the exact same thing that happened every single time. So, no scissors in this entire animation. We then get this famous Inkling who, quote-unquote, loves men, scheming and looking around all suspicious while the Octoling behind them just techs away. I saw this specific Inkling was quite popular in a lot of people's plazas during the demo. It even got some fan art, I think, at one point, which is kind of cool. I did walk into the battle tower just to see what would happen, but since I recorded this before the Splatfest demo actually took place, I couldn't try any weapons out, but some nice music can be heard, including for some people I did see some Splatoon 1 tracks. Now, Murch sits next to the battle tower with a phone now covered in stickers that is also slightly cracked. The Super Sea Snails right next to him still kind of shudder in fear of being eaten, just like how they did with Spike in Splatoon 1. The signage next to Murch also shows the floor layout of the battle tower, but we can only access the testing range level, so the rest of it is seemingly for decoration. Now, this back alleyway was not shown off in the direct, but it leads to the Tableturf battle area, and you have to go under a few large shrine gates with some posters scattered about, including this one, which features the motorbike from the intersection area earlier. It might be some sort of job ad or something. There's also a flyer that seemingly has those tearaway phone numbers at the bottom, as well as some random graffiti and stickers over here. Now, the back area itself has a large open sewer with some trash surrounded by hedges, and then another float being built And behind that is the Tableturf battle stand. There's some gas canisters, more posters, a yellow bike, and some papers in the corner here. This whole section is probably supposed to feel underdeveloped and chaotic as opposed to the main street. An intersection is there's ivy all over, this weird elevated walkway, and a combination of a cramped yet open feel. In one little section, even more animations. Now, in general, I'll say the models look more polished and shiny to me. Well, shiny at least in their hair. This area has a lot of odd ambient noise and sort of weird song-like melodies that play as well, which just makes it more distinct from the main street. There's also an Inkling in this Port-a-Potty, which makes a noise very rarely. Poor guy is really struggling in there. The ramp next to it leads back to the main street, with the pig statue above it, obviously. There's also this book on this pallet, which kind of resembles like a manga or something, just laying on these boxes, with what seems to be the male main Inkling from Splatoon 2's promotional material on the front. And here I actually did hear the Inkling cry for help in the bathroom. Poor soul is fighting for his life in there, man. Now, at the end of this street is just another wall that we can't get through with some equipment behind it. The road does keep going, but I don't know if this is just locked off due to the demo or if we'll just never be able to access it at all. The truck sits here with some more Splatfest setup materials as well. The shrine gates change color all the way at the end of the street, and as a whole, looking down the street, it's so busy and bustling, just a ton of stuff to look at. It can be kind of overwhelming sometimes. The metro rail above and the planes constantly flying overhead make it feel like you're downtown on the busiest day of the year or something. This boarded up shop looks under construction. I really don't know if it's just for aesthetic purposes or if there's actually like a 6th shop planned to be in the game, or if this could be the access point to the large-scale paid DLC that they mentioned in the direct. But either way, it's kind of cool to think about what it could be for. Next door to that is Crush Station with one of the magazines from the promotional material out front, as well as a stand where the little buddy can actually sit. The shop itself is actually downstairs, and the musical theme has this kind of funky, soft guitar with some muted 808s behind it, which I kind of really dig. Here, take a listen. Now, Mr. Coco assures us that we can get through this and make it to level 4. We all know that's a lie, at least for now, because the demo didn't allow us to level up at all. I really do like Mr. Coco's personality of being, like, really, really considerate for the player, but seeming, like, physically very dominant and, like, intense looking. Now, as I made my way back to the main street, I kind of wondered what these things on the side of Hotlantis are, and it turns out that they're actually signatures of band members in Splatoon's many bands, which is really, really cool. Credit to this user on Twitter for pointing it out. This is an insane detail, and I always love seeing more in-game band representation in Splatoon, since a lot of the information about the bands in Splatoon isn't really shown in the games at all, but is only shown outside of the game on their social media or art books or stuff like that. I then made my way up to Naut Couture, which is actually above Ammo Nights, so heading on up we see hats out front and boxes blocking our way up further, which kind of sucks. I'd really like to get up on top and see the big snake up close, but oh well. Now, the low poly renders for this shop are all hats, and inside we can actually hear the theme has got a chill, sort of laid-back vibe with all these random chimes and dings abounding. Now, after reloading, I actually spotted my little buddy just chilling out right here on this chain link fence area, just having the time of his life. And I discovered that you can actually walk on this section as well, as the hedges above it in this area around the front of Emotes. But these signs are getting in the way, so it seems that's as much as you can walk on as possible. I then ran into that SRB2 dude's Inkling, or at least someone who really likes him, rubbing their hands together and plugging the channel in front of the new Grizzco headquarters. So, shoutouts to dude. Now, Grizzco headquarters actually kind of looks a bit nicer than its Splatoon 2 counterpart, and also has a security camera as well. You can see posters from Splatoon 2 and the art book are slapped on the walls surrounding the headquarters, which are recruitment ads and a flyer advocating for what seems like the elimination of salmonids. You can also hear this thumping beat, and there's this weird poster on the door down below. So Grizzco's headquarters is also underground. The same poster that's on the door is actually on the ground out front, and it's of an Inkling holding a salmonid, probably like dead, so that's kind of intense. The boxes out front also have the Grizzco logo on them as well. They might be carrying eggs, I don't know. There's also a small alleyway that stretches from the battle tower area all the way to the Tableturf stand in the back on the side of the Grizzco headquarters building, which is really, really cool. In the alleyway itself, there's a bunch of the gloves and boots that you wear in Salmon Run on hangers and in boxes, seemingly being left out to dry. This is kind of a nice detail to hammer home that this is the Salmon Run building. Now, next up, I went up the ramps to the elevated area. The first ramp has this sort of fenced-in electrical equipment with a warning sign on the ground. It's got like a fire, a water, and an electricity symbol on it. The main warning sign actually on the fences has a person drinking, another electricity symbol, and a match symbol. So I guess Inklings are trying to drink the water and light stuff on fire or something. The Inkling script here all seems to be gibberish though, so I couldn't make anything out. Now the ramps themselves take you up to a nice viewpoint of the back of Splatsville with some benches, trash bins, and vending machines. You do get a nice look at some ivy and overgrown plant life, as well as this large tower with satellites on it that probably broadcast the Anarchy Splatcast. The large elevated green walkway seemingly connects to this door right here, and it rises up above our current point of view. I'm pretty sure this is inaccessible to the player, which kind of sucks, because that would be a really cool point of view to see maybe the outskirts of, maybe out of Splatsville and the rest of the city, but we'll have to see in the main game. The rooftops below here, though, have a bunch of trash on them and sort of resemble traditional Japanese roofing. There's not much else up here except of a glimpse of even more trash. I don't know if there's a garbage strike or something in Splatsville, or their waste management is just subpar, but there seems to be a lot of trash in this city. Back on the main street, though, there's this glass top structure which allows you to actually look down at a road underneath the street, which begs the question, do the shops all have underground entrances as well? We already know that Crush Station and Grizzco are underneath the main area, so is there an underground street we can maybe see, or is that part of a planned large-scale DLC? It would be really cool to have some sort of underground section to the hub, but who knows? Now, the shop near here actually sells what seems to be Callie and Marie merchandise, as well as some jelly and graffiti sticker stuff as well. I'm kind of glad to see the Squid Sisters are still raking in the dough through merchandise, and that they're getting a small nod to their original designs here. Next door to that is what seems to be a game board of some sorts. My best guess is shogi, which for those of you that don't know is sort of like Japanese chess. I kind of like this as well. It's just a sort of another small little detail that gives some livelihood and really kind of asks more questions than it answers. There's another shop further down as well, which has various boxes and seemingly like food items and maybe manga books or something. And the mailbox is also right here as well. And I did also go through the information here to see if there was anything interesting. Most of it is just pretty standard tutorial stuff. and it actually looks pretty nice. The main thing I gleaned from this that I didn't already know was that posts can be switched off, but they won't be completely gone. They'll just be replaced by presets that Nintendo has selected. So if you're tired of seeing Plaza posts that are generated by players and you just want sort of like default ones, you can change it to that. Now, another shop next to that seems to be like a food stall of some sort with another smaller glass structure to look down at the road below near it. There are also two little food carts here as well. One sells what seems to be like shaved ice with various flavored syrups, and the other just sort of like various fruits. Then I went to check out Manhole Wardrobe, which has this sort of synth pop music theme, which fits the stainless steel aesthetic pretty nicely. Gelafleur kicked me out because I'm not level 4, and I'm back to the main square again. So let's look at the menu. It has some cool icons of the shops, and scrolling over them actually shows you an arrow of where the shops are located, which is pretty nice. We can also see the single player area in this game is called the Crater as opposed to Octo Canyon in Splatoon 2. So it has no mention of Octo at all, it's just called the Crater, which is kind of ominous. Now, sliding over in the menu gets us to the stage rotations, which will once again be 2 maps for 2 hours. And the Salmon Run rotations that are below it will be 4 hours in length, but they won't be limited to specific days, which is kind of nice. Salmon Run rotations will have weapons change every 4 hours instead of having to play an entire rotation for like maybe a day with the same weapons, which is actually a really good change. Now the next tab shows the splash tag, current gear, weapon, and level, as well as this minus button, which actually opens up the album where all the photos you take with the photo mode are stored. I didn't obviously know in the demo as a catalog, which is a bummer. The tabs on this menu are actually paper that's been stapled to the menu itself, which I thought was kind of a fun little aesthetic touch. We can also see that abilities here are the same as the previous game with 2 exceptions, as I touched on in the direct video. All the descriptions are the same as the previous ones, but it's nice to know that all of the previous abilities are back, minus the 2 that I mentioned. And once again, there's a perfect spot for one more ability. So maybe we'll get a final ability to round out everything, but who knows. We can also see that Intensify Action and Sub-Resistance Up are stackable abilities, which is kind of nice. Now, the Tableturf Battle tab shows your rank and allows you to view your cards. Obviously, we don't have any of them right now, so we can't view those. But on the menu itself is this cool sticker that resembles art on one of the cards. The next tab is the Options tab, which has your basic sensitivity sliders, motion control toggle, and inversion of stick directions, as well as the same for the handheld mode. The other section has a color lock feature for colorblind folks, the post display on-off, and a lobby notification setting too, which notifies your friends about your play status online. Player settings just allows you to customize your look again, like at the beginning of the tutorial. Now, the album tells us we can send the photos in-game to Splatnet 3, which will probably allow you to either download or screenshot them onto your phone. There is seemingly room for a lot of photos, probably like 100 plus, and the ability to set 10 favorite photos, which is pretty nice too. Now, moving on to the Shoal, it has its own theme, but nothing else is really of note about the building. I did notice that the jellies actually have some new animations though, like this guy just looking around like a lost tourist, and jellies also seem to have different clothes, maybe from like a set pool of clothes, but it's nice to see that they're not all wearing the same shirt all the time or just nothing at all. I did some more wandering around and I saw this Inkling just kicking their legs and sitting, and another trio, but this time all on their phones. These two seem pumped about something, and I just love their smiles and the quality of these new animations in general. I also can't forget about the Among Us Sus I found too, which shows the feature which allows you to aim at signage or graffiti and be able to give a post, a fresh, or report without having to walk up directly to an Inkling. The equip menu itself is the same as the previous games, with the models all looking slightly upgraded. Obviously, there are weapons, headgear, clothes, and shoes, along with the other and the new emote section. Although I kind of dislike how the emote section is like a different size tab. Scrolling through all the weapons and stuff, the brushes added this sort of funny flopping physic. And another thing I noticed is that the E-liter has the design of Splatoon 1's E-liter, but the name of Splatoon 2's E-liter. So it's the silver E-liter from Splatoon 1, but it's still called the E-liter 4K. It's kind of a nice fusion. Now, the background of this menu was also interesting, as there's sort of like random scraps of paper that are kind of floating with some barcodes, Inkling Square script, among other various scraps. I also love the small texture that floats in these bars representing the weapon stats too. There's also other random stickers and graphics behind the type, which all give the menu like a chaotic piecemeal feel that subtly distinguishes the game from 1 and 2. The gear available here was a nice balance of old and new, and I'm honestly digging the newer, weirder looking stuff. I feel like fashion in Splatoon 3 will have more depth than the previous games. And the new settings section is the same as what we looked at earlier, but this style tab allows you to customize your character easily, but you cannot change from Inkling to Octoling or vice versa, at least via this menu. The emote available is also pretty wild, and a lot of the variations between the weapons look kind of insane in this like blank void. I do really enjoy how each weapon class, at least for this emote, has a different variation. I wonder if that applies to every other emote, so that each emote has a different variation for each weapon class, or if there are some emotes that are just the exact same regardless of your weapon. So there could end up being like hundreds of different variations of these emotes in the game, which would be actually kind of insane and really a lot of work for the dev team. I don't know, we'll get a confirmation obviously as we get the full game and I'm able to test that stuff, but that'd be kind of crazy. I actually did end up recording all of the animations because I wanted to see them all, so here they all are. If you want to skip over all of these, just go to the timestamp on the screen right now. Now, getting to the registering of a favorite fit, it's relatively easy to do, and having 5 was pretty nice, at least during the Splatfest, since I wanted to play a bunch of stuff and I could switch fits on the fly pretty easily. I really like the ability to register a favorite fit. Obviously, the fact that it was locked to an amiibo in Splatoon 2 was really stupid, so I'm glad that they got rid of it and implemented it into the main game itself. I kind of wish that there was more than 5. Obviously, if you buy the Splatoon 3 amiibo or just have Splatoon amiibo from 1 or 2, you can get more favorite fit slots, but that's kind of dumb that you have to buy amiibo if you want to get more than 5 registered favorite fits, but whatever. That's sort of a little nitpick. Now, the sorting feature for these menus has been greatly improved. At least for weapons, you can now sort by main weapon, which puts them in their respective classes as tabs, as well as subs and specials that do the same. And we can see the game displays what seems like 10 classes now. Shooters, rollers, chargers, sloshers, splatlings, dualies, brellas, blasters, brushes, and the 2 new classes, stringers and splatanas. The game also has 14 subs and 15 specials, although some weren't actually available in the demo. And that's everything that I really got during the daytime version before the Splatfest actually started. Now, for the nighttime version, which was the first half of the Splatfest, you can see that Deep Cut flies around on their floats. The path that they go around is just a loop of the plaza, down the main street, up the stairs to the battle tower, around the battle tower and through the shrine gate alleyway, around the hedges, and down the ramp, through the pig gate, back to the main street. And they just loop that over and over and over again. Now, it did feel kind of weird to see something like fly in Splatoon that's like really, really large. It looks a little awkward and kind of doesn't really seem supernatural, but I do like how lively the plaza feels during the nighttime version of Splatfest. I really enjoyed how the signs and the graffiti all became the colors of the Splatfest, the red, the blue, and the yellow, and that Inklings and Octoling got some dope dance moves as well, which we'll see more of as I wander around the plaza here. Even the jellies got some dance moves too, which was really nice, including this little dude who has like glow sticks just like shoved into his head, kind of looks like Murch a little bit. I also love how the jellies kind of changed color to match the 3 teams, as well as all the different dancing animations that they included. Like this one, where one Inkling is seemingly recording another Inkling dancing. It's just another nice touch that makes the game feel more realistic. There's also this trio which is working on their choreography together, which begs the question, could dances like the ones that we see here eventually become emotes? Or could we get emotes for the plaza? Like, if your Inkling appears in other players' plaza, could you give them an emote that they would perform? That would be actually kind of cool. Now, the live video feed of Deep Cut is also broadcasted and projected onto a ton of different surfaces, like this truck, the wall next to the Port-a-Potty, and even some buildings, as well as the large screen behind them, of course. Now, the back area here also has all these shopkeepers that came out, as opposed to when we saw it during the daytime where they were all shuttered up. Most of them seem to be food stalls run by jellies, like this one, who seems to kind of sell like glow sticks, wristbands, and a ton of other like merchandise. And then the one right next to him has got all this fresh fruit and a big wok, while across from that is this long jelly seemingly making takoyaki or octopus stuffed dough balls, which you can tell because he's seemingly using like chopsticks to like turn them, which is how takoyaki is made. There's also just like this little shrimp thing right here on the ledge with like ketchup and mustard bottles nearby. I just kind of like all these weird, neat little details. We can also see this fruit stand guy with the wok is cooking bread of some sort and wearing a mask very responsibly. There's also this adorable little jelly family with these little baby jellies eating dumplings of all kinds. The next stand has 2 workers actually with a variety of different foods, this really large pot, and what seems to be like bowls of ramen or udon. The yellow jelly is probably fanning the food to like waft the smells out to the various Inklings and Octolings. Now the hedge in the sewer area of this section is still relatively quiet, but since Deep Cut actually passes through here, it isn't as barren as it normally is. I did really love this long jelly and his small friend just chilling and grooving out to the music, as well as this Inkling dancing, and this one with the towel or like flag of some sort. I went to check out the studio, and even the production crew jellies are jamming out to the music, which was really kind of fun. I did catch Big Man coming up the main staircase, and I know some people are going to get great photos with the photo mode during the main game during Splatfest. I can feel it. Now we get to the testing range, and boy, it is so much better than Splatoon 2's. Oh my god. It's got so many more dummies. and just an increased variety. They brought back the large dummies from Splatoon 1, but now they can take 999.9 damage and don't break. They've got more moving dummies. They've got dummies at various heights. They've got some that are kind of obscured by obstacles, so you can like test how to peek or like how to hit them while they're slightly obstructed, as well as just way more space. They also have this brand new copy machine dummy, which is really nice. It allows you to test ink resistance by yourself, see Squidroll's damage negating effects, and just see how weapons compare paint-wise to the splatter shot at least. It also gives you the option to die in the testing range, which, if you wanted to know, just respawns you right in front of the dummy itself. Now, the dummy, like the large ones, can take 999.9 damage, but it doesn't die. The copy machine itself, well, copies you. It mimics all of your inputs, so if you hold down ZR to shoot, it shoots as well. If you press R to throw a bomb, it throws a bomb too. Now, the rest of the lobby is really, really nice. The elevator to the right here takes you back up to the plaza. The battle pot, as it's called, takes you to the matches, but you can also get to the match menu using the L button. You can also toggle between two menus using the X button, which is the main menu, and the equipment menu. The Goldfish shopkeeper here sells you the food and drinks, which you have to use tickets to buy, and as I predicted in my direct video, the large plates boost experience and money earned for your teammates as well as you. So that's kind of cool. Hopefully my teammates in solo ranked and turf war will always be running these so I can get as much experience as possible, but I doubt it. Now, we don't know if it stacks with your own tickets, so if somebody's using one of these big plates that boost everybody's teammates and you're running one of the individual ones, do you get a boost from both? Do you only get a boost from your ticket? I don't know. It'll be kind of interesting to see how that interacts and works. We also finally get to see a look at the drink menu, and this time they're not actually like drinks in a cup like in Splatoon 2. They're just like juice in like a plastic bag with a straw, which is definitely a chaotic choice to say the least. We can also see several condiments here, a microwave, and the menu, which are all really, really nice touches that make this shop just feel even more like a food stand. I did test whether you can splat Judd, and you can't, which is a bummer, but he seemingly is mortal and invincible anyway, so that fits with the lore. He doesn't even stir from his nap at all during this Splatfest, so he's probably a pretty heavy sleeper as well. The shell-out machine is also in the lobby here. It's pretty colorful, but you can't interact with it at all, which kind of sucks. Also, we couldn't get into the locker room. It was completely grayed out, so you can't even look into it. I would have loved to get in there and look around, but I'll have to wait until the main game launches. Now, upstairs is actually like a cafe of sorts with a jelly that kind of reminds me of Brewster from Animal Crossing that's sort of like cleaning his coffee cups. He's got all this coffee stuff that he needs to make some really good drinks, and I kind of wondered if they'll ever make him an actual like interactable NPC that like maybe sells coffee that like boosts different stats or something. That would be kind of cool. Also, the tables up here in this cafe area actually display Tableturf Battle. So I think when they update the game to add online play, you might be able to access it from these. Maybe, maybe not. Now, right next to these tables, through the glass, is actually two jellies that are sort of just jamming out, bumping the best tunes, which also made me think, are we going to get control of the music in the testing room? I mean, they have these two here, and that could be a pretty easy way to access it. I don't know, but that would be kind of nice. Now we get to the final part of this, the second half of Splatfest. The plaza itself doesn't change that much, mainly just the fact that Deep Cut, instead of now floating around the map, is all together on one stage with this huge screen behind them. It resembles the shape of Shiver's fan. A lot of the Inklings and Octolings in the plaza actually face towards this big screen and where Deep Cut is, and it makes it seem like a bit more crowded around the battle tower. Even Murch seemingly cracks a smile watching them perform. Another small thing is this light drone display that I caught in the sky really far above that I got a pretty good view of on the elevated platforms from earlier. It goes from this like white symbol to these three larger rectangles which display various drawings from the mailbox, as well as these floating lanterns like this one which fully clips into the walkway. All the jelly food shops are the same, but I did realize around here that a lot of the plaza has stuff you can jump on or climb around, like the railings and this bike and this awning. Also, a pro tip that I found, the Knock-Couture balcony is the perfect place to get a zoomed in view of Deep Cut performing, at least during the second half. And, I mean, just looking around during the second half, or even the first half of Splatfest, it's so wild how colorful and crazy and beautiful this game is. There's so much stuff packed into your point of view. There's crazy music blaring and Inklings dancing all around, which really makes this version of Splatfest feel like a major event and like the best one yet. Now, let's head back to the testing room really quick. I realized that the holograms are actually 2D instead of 3D, and that there's actually a map of the area on the far wall over here. The copy machine dummy I did get a better look at. It's made of metal and bolts and kind of resembles an Inkling. And as we look up, we can realize that the area above the testing room is open, kind of like an arena dome with like these large lights and speakers and this huge screen. It kind of resembles like an American football stadium to me. Climbing up the stairs, I also saw that the battle pod itself has this really big electric plug in it, which is kind of interesting because Splatoon 3 has yet to reveal a major thing from Splatoon 1 and 2, a great zapfish, which kind of begs the question, where does Splatsville get its electricity from? In Splatoon 1 and 2, it's just common knowledge that the great zapfish powers both plazas, but there hasn't been mention of one in Splatoon 3 at all, so maybe this electric plug is just, like, doesn't work, or maybe that Splatsville runs on a power source other than Zapfish. I don't know. We'll probably figure it out during the course of the story mode. Now, when the Splatfest ended, it cut from night to day instantly, which kind of was a bit of a shattering of reality, since when it ended, at least for Eastern Standard Time, it was midnight, so like it's dark outside, and then it cuts to day in-game, which was kind of jarring, but we can actually see that the large stage that was there is gone, that it was replaced by this truck and some supplies, as well as a bunch of boxes of trash throughout the rest of the plaza. There was also this little like lift thing near the truck which could be jumped on as well, but not much else is really interesting after the Splatfest ends, to be honest. Overall, I'd say the plaza at its various stages is just absolutely bursting with life. From the new animations, the dances, sounds, ambient noises, jingles, to the stuff you can jump on, large amounts of space to walk around, various cars, trains, planes, and floats that move constantly. Splatsville feels like the most lively, busy, and realistic plaza yet. I cannot express how like incredible this new area was to dive into and explore, and I implore you to walk around and take in the surrounding area as much as I did when we all get to play on September 9th. I truly love the personality that oozes from every nook and cranny of this hub world, as well as the menus and other graphical interface elements. It gives this subtle tone and theming consistency that isn't as sharp or clear in Splatoon 1 or 2. I think it really helps sell the theme of chaos, and it aids in kind of separating Splatoon 3 from its predecessors by creating a distinct atmosphere and feel while still retaining what makes Splatoon great. It's colorful and vibrant and beautiful, but it's also grungy and gray and kind of gross at the same time. The plaza isn't squeaky clean or perfectly laid out, but that's what makes it feel real. Its imperfections and sometimes low-res textures help to flesh out this idea of a chaotic city that our Inklings and Octolings are drawn to battle in yet again. It's refreshing and new, but I can see myself not getting tired of it even after seeing it hundreds of times. I'm really excited for Splatoon 3 to launch, and if the rest of the game has anything like the level of detail and clarity of vision as the plaza in this demo, it's gonna be great. With that being said, if you enjoyed the video, please obliterate that like button and demolish subscribe to see more Splatoon 3 content. My next video will probably be something from the main game itself, and I'm actually working on a beginner's guide for the series as well, so stay tuned for that and much more. And also, let me know what your favorite part of the demo in the plaza was, and how your test fire experience in general went. I will see you all in Splatsville, and as always, I'm Jext. Have a good one.